Not long ago, I interviewed mixer, producer, engineer Matt Still, and I asked him about how luck and failure had impacted his career. He ended up telling me this interesting story about his first session with Elton John that I thought was so entertaining that I just thought I would play it in its entirety right here. Enjoy.
In 1993, that's when I first worked with Elton John. And that was the first session that I had with him. And that was kind of a turning point for my career because that's where I've been working with Elton ever since. So we're going on 27 years now, and I've done, I can't even begin to count how many sessions I've done with him, how many hours of recording, how many albums. I've worked on every musical he's done. I've worked on many albums, many soundtracks, produced a lot of stuff for him.
How did that come about with Elton? Like, how did you start working with him? What was the connection there?
Well, the studio that I was at, Soundscape, was the best studio in town. And, I've kind of learned with working with him, it's like when you go into a city that you're not used to, that you haven't worked in before, it's like you just look for what's the best studio, because that's where we want to go. And someone in his organization found Soundscape and said, okay, this is the place we want to go. I was the chief engineer at the time, so I got the opportunity to work on the sessions with him, and that's just kind of it was luck in a sense that I was in the right place at the right time, but then I was prepared for the opportunity, and I didn't. I impressed him enough that he was like, I like this guy. Whenever I record in Atlanta, I'm just going to work with him.
Yeah.
One moment that not to go back to that first session that I did with Elton, but there were a few things that happened in that were kind of career changing for me, and not just the fact that it was Elton. I almost got out of the business after that session or in the middle of that session because I felt like okay, I can't hack this. I'm not up to the task. I felt like I just wasn't good enough to do it. There were the first day. Like I said, I was a chief engineer there, but this was for the duets record, where every song was a duet with a different artist, and so they already had the producers and their engineers set up. So I was brought in as the assistant engineer, even though I was engineering for several years at that point. The studio manager was like, "Listen, it's Elton. I don't want anything to go wrong, so I'm going to make you the assistant. That way, if you need to step in, you can. But I just want to make sure that everything's running smoothly." So, I get in there, and the first day we're having all of these technical issues. We were having SMPTE issues with the multi-tracks between the multi-tracks and the sequencer that the programmer had come in with. I'm sure you probably remember where you couldn't use, with some machines you couldn't take SMPTE out of the patch bay. You had to run a splitter out of the back of the machine and run that straight into the sequencer because somehow for some reason the SMPTE was getting too degraded and then they're ready to record and the headphone amp blows up. And all of a sudden the headphones just go down, and it was just thing after thing after thing. And when at the studio we had these Studer B67 headphone amps, just beasts of a headphone amp, and they were just very long amps, very deep, and they were back in a rack, and I could, it was situated in a way where I couldn't get around to the back of it to connect a new amp, so I had to pull everything out from the front, which was fine. So I disconnect everything and pull it out, go into our shop, grab the only amp that I could find, which was a Crown amp, but it was a lot shallower. It was not as deep, and the cables wouldn't reach to the amplifier. So then I go and I'm like, okay, I've got to go and grab some speaker cable, and I'm just going to splice it in there. So I'm like crawled, it's like you see my legs sticking out of this rack. And I'm like crawled way back deep in there with a flashlight in my mouth trying to splice together these cables. And I have a razor blade and I get careless with it and I slice my finger open pretty bad. It was so bad. I mean, blood just came gushing out. Well, I got it all up and running and I was like, I'm not leaving this session. So I got gaffer's tape and just taped my fingers shut.
Oh, man.
The whole time, it's like blood would just still seep down my hand the whole session. And like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours went by, and I started to feel faint. And I was like, I told the producer, who was Greg Penny, and Greg's done a lot of Elton stuff. He did some stuff with Katie Lang and a lot of other, I think he did some Cher stuff as well. And he, and I said, Greg, I need to go get this not stop bleeding, and I'm starting to feel faint. I need to go to the hospital and get some stitches, get this looked at. He was like, go do your thing. We'll be fine. We'll make sure it's okay. And our assistant studio manager drove me to the hospital. On the way, I was just so dejected. I was like, that's it. I don't know what I'm doing. I suck. I can't hack it. I panicked and I didn't. I buckled under pressure. And I was like, I guess I need to start, maybe I can call one of those truck driving numbers or something that you see late at night or something, because that's probably the only thing that I'm qualified to do. And I'm not even qualified to do that yet.
Oh my God.
And so I go to the hospital, and there was, I got like 3 or 4 stitches in my finger, which is a lot for a finger, but it was a pretty deep cut, and I still have a scar to this day that shows the battle wound. But I got back, and Greg, some producers would have like kicked me out of the session and ringed me a new asshole. Greg came, put his arm around me, said, "Dude, sometimes we have bad days. You just had a really bad day. Put this behind you. Let's get in tomorrow. We're going to start fresh, and everything's going to be great." And everything from that point was great. And the fact that he took me aside and kind of gave me a little pep talk and said, "Dude, don't fucking worry about it. Shit happens. You're going to move on from this, and you're going to be better because of it." And I'm still around here doing this stuff today.
Wow. What a great story. I've got more stories like this in interviews coming up, so make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.